Good afternoon, and welcome to Keeping Cities Vital, Public Space and Resilience. We're coming to you live from Tampere, Finland, and we're going to take a virtual journey around the world to Jerusalem, Athens, and New York, with a stop in Helsinki and an exciting lineup of top-notch speakers who are all experts in their fields. Our hashtag is #SureTampere, and you can participate via Twitter or by posting a comment on our message wall. We'd love to hear from you. My name is Katja Panzar, and I'm your moderator today. I'm a writer, editor, and broadcast journalist based in Finland with a special connection to resilience. My most recent book, The Finnish Way, which is about well-being and sisu, a unique fortitude in the face of great challenges, has been published in 22 countries around the world. Penguin Random House in New York just signed on to publish my second book about resilience, which is called Daily Sisu, and will be coming out in 2022. One of my areas of interest is urban vitality. As I grew up in North America, I appreciate the Nordic infrastructure in very, very many ways. For example, it allows my 10-year-old son to walk safely to school by himself and attend events with his friends. I wasn't surprised at all by the recent news that Hollywood director Riley Stearns moved filming of his satirical sci-fi thriller Duel from the US to Tampere for many reasons, one of them being safety. As the organizer of this event is SURE, Smart Urban Security and Event Resilience, we'll hear expert advice from around the world on how to keep cities vital. And now, I'm going to hand over the floor, so to speak, for our official opening. Let's welcome Anna-Kaisa Heinämäki, who is the Director of Competitiveness for the City of Tampere here in Finland. Anna-Kaisa has previously held posts including Deputy Mayor of Tampere. As a police officer, she was Chief Inspector at the Ministry of the Interior and the National Police Board, with a focus on security planning urban areas. Welcome. Over to you, Anna-Kaisa.
Thank you. On behalf of the City of Tampere, I warmly welcome you to this webinar. The main idea of this seminar is to discuss how city vitality, competitiveness and security are linked together. So we want to give to our audience and speakers a platform to share their knowledge and share their new ideas. The key word of the day is security. It's interesting that regardless of the time we live in, security is always a part of city development, events and people's everyday life. But the focus varies depending on what issues we are facing. Terrorism, cybersecurity, violent radicalization, public order and security, and now COVID-19. Perspectives change all the time. Each one of these issues have different solutions and challenges, and they all affect our urban city development and events. But all of these issues are also means to create new business. It's also important to note that even if we could solve all these security issues, minimize accidents and crime statistics, remove all dangers to our health, people's sense of security is still more than the sum of these factors. So the essential key question is, how can you promote safe events as a part of urban city planning without making a deal of it? How can different safety issues be taken care of without fear-inducing control and new restriction regulation? I think that luckily we have come a long way. When I used to work as a police officer 10 years ago, I worked on the patrol and I was also planning city security plans. Back then, it was still typical to demand more control, more regulation, more force, and more power. Nowadays, the answer is digitalization, open data, innovations made possible with new investments, comprehensive development of event areas, and of course, open communication and interaction with different partners. Good tiny example is also that before, for example, 10 years ago, we used to remove benches from public areas in order to avoid problems and to promote safety. Now, we see the city center as an open living room. The city is safe when people can enjoy themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, this webcast is produced by the Sure project from Tampere, Finland. As a strong event city, Tampere is a good example of city that wants to promote these kind of solutions with authorities, associations, companies, and citizens. During the next few years, we will host many major events, and our big new event arenas will soon be open for business. We are also applying to become the European Culture Capital 2026. All while the whole event sector is undergoing a huge change, where different virtual solutions become a part event organized in urban spaces. Our rapidly growing Tampere city, combined with investments and a culture of cooperation, is an ideal place for new security innovations and for this open discussion for further development. I hope that you will have enjoyable and fruitful day. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna-Kaisa, for that very interesting speech. I find it fascinating that public benches were removed once upon a time, which today seems very understandable, but very interesting detail. And now we're going to hear from our next speaker, Anina Autero, who is the City of Tampere's SURE project manager. And although we've had a fairly mild autumn here in the north so far, many of us are eagerly awaiting the first snow, including Anina, who loves winter and especially the beautiful snowflakes it brings. Here is Anina.
Thank you, Katja. Good afternoon. My name is Anina Autero. As Katja nicely put it, I love winter, and I'm really looking forward to get the really beautiful floating snowflakes, which have a specific shape that is kind of part of our culture too. So I work in the 5-star city center in the city of Tampere, leading the project called Smart Urban Security and Event Resilience. I have a background of security and safety assignments. I've been working for the last 14 years studying security and safety problems in our society, and also led a few projects considering safety and security. So I think I have a quite well understanding how it goes in our country, in Finland. And now we are delighted to be able to develop the Tampere region, and especially the urban city center area. So my task is to tell you why we are here today. Anna-Kaisa put it nicely into words that we are here because of the city vitality, competitiveness, and the security. They are linked together. Security is the platform for all growth and for all city vitality and competitiveness aims. So that's one of the reasons why we are here today. So we are supposed to catch and release ideas today in our presentations from all around the world, and also you're able to fill in your ideas, and we're going to have a really nice debate where we're going to discuss about the specific topics related to security and city vitality. We are also here today to learn from each other's, and I'm hoping that you would be able to learn something about our project called SURE. And thirdly, we are here to commit to the challenging target of safety and security of urban cities and events. As we all know, it requires all of our work, so it's a target for all of us. Smart Urban Security and Event Resilience project was born a few years ago under the development of safety and security cluster of Tampere region partners. They identified that there is a specific need to develop safe and secure events. And nowadays it's probably really clear to everybody that we really need the events and we really need the secure and safe events. Why do we need events? What is the purpose of events serve? We believe in the SHORE project, we believe that there should be a balance between security and ambience of the events, that they should go hand in hand, that security is the platform that helps and supports the joyful events that we have, and they make it possible to create also business around that. So we are awakening potentials. Events stimulate interaction between people and between the city. There is a natural need for people to interact, and events is one of the platforms for this interaction. So in a way, events are also an act of safety and security. One thing that I found in my research was that social exclusion is one big problem with our security in our society in Finland and in the Nordic countries. So events are, in a way, a preventing action towards social exclusion. People need to have the communication, they need to have the interaction towards each other. And our university team always says that joy should be cherished. And I think I really agree with that. Another thing is we're talking about a smart solution. What does smart cities actually mean? What smart cities are in 2020? When we're talking about smart cities and smart solutions, we are talking about something that we should really put efforts into systems that change over time. And our decisions, what we decide 2020, they should be sustainable through lifespan. So the technology solution that we're building in SHORE project, it should sustain. It should be sustainable through a lifespan. So we are not just making quick fixes, we're making long-term effects on society. And we're choosing the technology with a smart way. In smart cities, we talk about parking mechanisms and smart lightnings to guide and so on and so on. But what is really essential is the leverage of the data and the system, that they go together, and that's what actually smart, that's what makes it smart. So we need to match the security needs, we need to match the technology, and we need to get more time for the emergency officials to be able to work on time. So we wanted to understand, we really wanted to understand the value proposition in our project is that we do this together. Smart everyday security and event security are the results of joint efforts. And we are building a seamless blend of security and ambience for urban events. These are the facts of the project, so we are delighted to be able to be funded by the Urban Innovative Actions of European Union, and we were the only project in Finland and the third project in Europe. So Italy and Greece and Finland were able to get the funding for 3 years, a little bit more than 4 million euros. This is what we focus in our project. How do we manage large crowd concentration and event-related urban security in the city center? This is the map, and you can see from the map that we are located between two big lakes, and it's quite a narrow space. Lake Pyhäjärvi and Lake Näsijärvi are the big lakes, and here you can see the event facilities. And with the yellow color or the yellow-green color, we're marking the areas that we are building the smart system for. And we are working on a daily basis in a dynamic situation when we have events and in a situation that is exceptional. meaning, for example, an extreme weather condition or a terrorist attack. And as the opening of the event pointed out, we are investing into this event facilities. So next year, Euros Live Arena is going to open their doors. We're going to have Ice Hockey Championships Games 2022. So we're going to have massively more events in the city center, and we really need to get ourselves prepared for that. We have challenges, as we always have. The main challenges in our project, we have identified that there are event-related and event business-related challenges that affect actually into the security solutions too. Then we have challenges that are not necessarily in our hands. And what we have identified, so we have been actually asking the people who go to events, the citizens and the event goers, what do they actually think? When do they feel safe? What is the sense of security? What does it actually mean? That is one of the core questions that we are discussing today. One of the really big tasks in our society is how do we evolve the people into the development as co-creation? How do we ask the people? How do we get their responses? And that's also on our to-do list. Social acceptability of new surveillance technology solutions is an important feature in the Nordic countries, in Europe and also in Finland. As Anna-Kaisa pointed out in her opening, that it is a question that we are thinking whether we should make a big deal out of security issues or not. So it's a balance. At the moment, the event organizers are saying that we should really make a spectacular out of it. And we're going to hear interesting points about that today. So we don't have to keep it under the table anymore. We can put it on the table, and we can really look at it into one's eyes. But we really need to focus into this question. Otherwise, the technology solutions won't fit, and it will become a cage for the users. One thing that is we have identified as a business challenge feature, event business challenge feature, is that there are several actors working towards the events. There are private sector organizers, there are public sector organizers, non-profit organizers who arrange events. And the events have specific services that they provide. You come to Tampere, you spend the night here, you need the hotel, the accommodation, you go to restaurants and use a lot of services. So there are several actors who sort of serve the same need of the customer, but they are kind of siloed. So technology is something that we can sort of lean on in the question of siloed actors, but it doesn't take away the challenge of how do we deal with this in security. So who is responsible of what actions? And actually, the private sector organizations have quite a big role in creating secure and safe events, whether they recognize it or not. They are part of that chain, and there are several examples of this. So these challenges in our minds, we have been working towards our goals to create more secure everyday life in the city of Tampere and events. And we are preparing our experts, our security experts, for better preparation through simulation model, through exercises, that we're building them a platform that they are able to train themselves for security threats. And we have identified specific security threats in our project to be able to exercise. So nobody knows what the future will bring. It will bring a lot of good things, a lot of brightness, but also things that we should really prepare ourselves for. So we are building a sort of a training laboratory for the officials to be used. And of course, it's an innovation project. So innovations in city security, our aim is that there is a lot of technology and security experts in the area of Tampere, and we are supporting their development work. We're trying to push them forward to get better solutions to make safer events, safer city. This is what I went through, and I want you to remember that there is a lot of potential. There is a lot of potential, and we are working at the core of this business area. This is our security town plan. That's what I call it. We start from the user understanding. That's the basis for our work. This is the shore house. It looks like a pyramid, but it's like a house. And at the top of the house, there are safe and secure events. So we need to understand, what do the people think? What is the basis for the work? Then we have defined our value proposition, the good balance between the ambience and security. They go hand in hand and blend into each other's. Then we need support that comes from technology, data, and GDPR. And the privacy issues are really a big, important area for us. And I can claim that there are people who have been working with this issue really hard, and it's been on their shoulders, and you've done an excellent job. So we are prepared for this issue. We have evaluated the data privacy analysis, considering the cameras that we are using. Whoops. Combining physical and digital services is a challenge. What we're doing now is that we are combining it. Some of us are here on this event today, and most of you are digitally joining, and after that, we can develop the usage of this event. But we are combining physical and digital services, meaning that we are investing into security infrastructure in the city of Tampere, in the urban area. So that means cameras, lighting, smart lighting, guidance system, transportation areas, and also, yes, we are really putting efforts also on the physical services, and they are matched into our solution. Pilots and testing, and as I mentioned, safe events is at the top of our building. And it's a continuous path. It's never going to end. So it's a continuous development. And we have identified this social return on investment. So this is always an investment. Security is an investment for the people who organize events. It's an investment for the city, and it's an investment for the property owners. So it is really important to understand the long-term effects, social return on investment, and that's how we're able to measure the effects of the shore solution. Security is made together, so we work in an ecosystem with authorities, research and education organizations, private sector companies, and also the service users. Well, this is our model, just basically. We have a lot of good architects who work with us. So we move from left to right with the Finnish way. So we have the sensors in the city, the ones that I mentioned, the cameras, the sensors, and the ways to collect data for decision making in the middle of the picture, which means that there is a situation awareness, a room in the middle where all this data can be used. It is collected from the city, and we are interested in on the people and traffic flows, and what anomalies, what exceptions there are in people and traffic flows. And then the system alerts, the monitoring, the command and control system, which is built by InstaBlue Aware system. And what alerts is Nokia Skin Analytics, the AI system that is the sort of the basis of our systemic approach. And we wanted to highlight that this is a socio-technological solution. So that is the same length with the AI and analytics and service design, where we ask the customers and the event people who go to events, what are they thinking? So the service design is going hand in hand with the analytics. And on the right-hand side, there are the operations. So we are building into and we are investing into better infrastructure with the European Union Urban Innovative Actions Initiative funding. So we are really delighted and honored to have that possibility so that we are better prepared. We have better operational level in the physical infrastructure. And what is up there is the knowledge and the education. So simulation and preparedness exercise is something that we are raising the level and the knowledge and the abilities for our safety and security experts to be able to be better prepared for these specific scenarios. And then we have, as a cherry in a pie, we have the scaling up. So we are scaling this model into the school districts and other event areas. And I have, as last part of my presentation, what are the end results? I was just describing before this event that we have 2 more years to go with the end results, since we are a 3-year project and 1 year has passed. So what we are looking at short and long-term pulse of the shore. At events, it means that we are trying to decrease the number of security alerts. We are trying to put more efforts on the reaction ability and reaction speed in the events of unanticipated security anomalies. And event security simulation is one of the areas. And then we are trying to support the sense of security for everyone. We're trying to put it on the platform. And integration of security technology and related data makes it smart. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy this afternoon.
Thanks, Anina. That was wonderful. I really liked the emphasis on, although there are many challenges, the future does look bright, and there are a lot of positive aspects when you prepare and when you look at resilience from a way of preparing for things and all kinds of possible challenges. Thank you. Now we are going to travel to Jerusalem, Israel, for our keynote speech by Roy Folkman, who is a policy advisor and former MP for Jerusalem, Israel. And his keynote speech is entitled, "A National Crisis That Needs Local Response, Lessons from the Israeli Experience." Welcome, Roy. How are you?
I'm great, and I'm also connected to what Anina said about snow. From the mountains of Jerusalem, we usually don't have snow, and if you can send us some, it will be very appreciated. So that's Anina. My kids love snow, and usually they're disappointed. So thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much for Tampere and for this event. I'll touch on a few of our experiences. I was a member of parliament, the Israeli parliament, until a year ago, and during the COVID pandemic, I was part of a few independent task force developing technologies, and I will share with you some of our lessons and also some of the failures, because like other countries, we haven't escaped the first lockdown and then a second lockdown, and I'll touch a little bit about that. But I'll share with you a short presentation, and we'll go from there. Just a second. Okay, you see the presentation at this point? Can you see the slides? No. Just to know that you can see the slides.
No, unfortunately, we can't see the slides,
oh,
but I believe that we
okay.
have a backup here, do we?
No, it will be okay. Just a second. We'll share it with you in a moment. We'll do it again. Share, and we'll do it again. Okay, I think now it works better. Okay. So for the first, I want to touch about the issue of local versus national with regards to managing crisis and also issues of security and safety. Israel is unique with regards to European countries that we don't have a regional government. Finland, for example, is approximately half the size of the population of Israel. We are around 11 million. I think Finland is approximately 5.5. And we only have local authorities, around 260, and a national government. We don't have, like in Finland, regional governments. And that was a major obstacle to working around a crisis. And we have learned it, by the way, in other crises in the past, but it's very difficult to implement. So that's one level, and I'll touch on that in a second. The second challenge with regards to any crisis, and COVID is no difference, is that we have tried to manage two dimensions. We call it the red dimension and the blue dimension. The red was dealing with the crisis itself, meaning the pandemic, the infection, the treatment. And the blue dimension is how to retain ordinary life, economy, education, welfare, as best as possible. Now, before I will show you a few of the lessons, I want to start with my spiritual guide, Mr. Humphrey, from Yes, Prime Minister, explaining why and what are the difficulties with regional government authorities.
Bernard, I want to have a word with you about Professor Marriott.
And I will move a little bit faster for the sake of time.
Reform local government. Do you, Bernard? Yes. We'll be too frightened to withhold them, so you'll get regional government. Would that matter? Bernard, sit down. Bernard, what happens at the moment if there's some vacant land in, say, Nottingham, and there are rival proposals for its use, you know, a hospital, a college, or an airport?
Well, we set up an interdepartmental committee, Department of Health, Department of Education, Department of Transport, Treasury, Environment, ask for papers, hold meetings, propose, discuss, revise, report back, redraft, and all things.
Precisely. Months of fruitful work. Leading to a mature and responsible conclusion. But if you have regional government, they decide it all in Nottingham. Probably in a couple of meetings, complete amateurs.
It is their city.
And what happens to us?
Well, much less work.
Yes, much less work. So little that ministers might almost be able to do it on their own. So we have much less power.
Well, I don't know whether I really want power.
Bernard, if the right people don't have power, do you know what happens? The wrong people get it.
So that's the point. When the right people don't have power, the wrong people get it. And that was a very strong political issue with regards to the powers between local and national governments. So you can always trust Sir Humphrey to explain it as clearly as possible. But why in such a crisis local responses are so crucial? So first of and foremost is about nuanced action. Why we need in a pandemic a nuanced action. So for example, we in Israel have very different communities living in different cities. For example, the ultra-Orthodox living in cities in various places in the country where very high density population of a family can be a family of 9 people living in a very small apartment. When someone got infected, it was impossible to isolate within the building or the apartment. It is completely different than suburbs in other places of the country. So in each regional area, in each municipality, a nuanced solution needs to be devised. In some places, we had to confiscate hotels in order to assist people to be isolated outside of their homes because they could not do it in a room inside a house if 9 people live in one apartment. So clearly nuanced solutions need to address different communities and different residents and municipalities. The second challenge why it needs to be on the local level is the real time. We saw that locating infections has a gap of time. Sometimes it takes a day. Now it's faster. We'll talk about faster identification, but until now it takes several hours to 2 days. And usually we found out, for example, when we started the education system, that local managers and local mayors knew way better and more accurately what is happening in a school than the Ministry of Health in Jerusalem. So we needed local data being used in the relocations and not being pushed to national government and being analyzed there. It needs to be analyzed on the ground. And the second part, I am sure it's quite clear for all of you, and you spoke, I think Anina spoke a little bit about surveillance and data and all sorts of sensors. And of course, when things are being done by the national government, there is way less trust and less compliance. We saw that when local leadership and local nuanced policies are being implemented, for example, a local mayor nearby where I live gathered together all the business owners of stores, and they developed a policy that was relevant, and they trusted the policies and they implemented it. So there is easier way to gain trust when people feel that local leadership and that policies are adapted to their needs. So that's about trust and compliance. What do they need in order to confront the pandemic? And it's mainly true for other crises as well. So first, we've done a lot of work and a lot of innovation. I'll show you just a few examples around data. Through allocation of apps, you can see some of the systems and the reports that municipalities developed independently in Israel and also jointly with other municipalities. One example why data needs to be analyzed on the ground. For example, we got data on people that are being infected, but we didn't know who lives together. We wanted to analyze households. So, for example, in Jerusalem, there was an analytic system developed only in Jerusalem to analyze not people independently, but infections through households, because we wanted to know different communities in the city where the pandemic is spreading. It changed policy completely when we knew about households and not personal people infected. So that's just one example. I can address you, and of course you have the presentation. John Hopkins have prescribed the analytics, for example, what kind of analytics a city needs for the metrics, for key questions. And we started by developing technology after we had the policy and the metrics needed, not the other way around. And also, what can we measure to see vitality of routine life maintained during a crisis? We had that experience in events of wars and security issues, but also in the case of pandemic. Anina also touched the issue of situational assessment. That's a key point that I want to touch very briefly. Again, how do you combine data from various levels and various agents into one situational assessment that can be developed into a policy that develops daily and weekly? So a lot of the offer was how to develop these war rooms inside municipalities in order to face a lot of data from various agents. I want to show you one example, because the last point that I want to show you is around innovation. And usually Israel is very fast in innovation, and that was the case again on local levels, because the national government was very difficult to adopt to national policies innovation. But on the local levels, a lot of experiments have been tried. I was part of several innovations that we have used in various places, some more successfully, some less. I want to show you one example that I think is relevant to this convention and to the project of Tampere and Shur, and that's what we call Safe Zone, and that's a current pilot being done now in a few cities in Israel. So you see now a map of the Tel Aviv region, and we want to develop a safe zone for events and commercial areas within the city. So what we have designed is in our areas where we define safe zone, that around those safe zones, you have entrance control systems and fast checks, fast COVID checks and exams. What is being done is that corona rapid tests are being conducted in gates around the area of the city center, or where events are being taken, football or cultural events. And there is a special app that shows through a barcode, are you free for the next 72 hours after a rapid test? For example, you go to a test, you take a test, then you get this barcode on your iPhone. It shows that you are green. Then you can freely enter the safe zone. Shopping malls, football stadium, university, and other areas. Why this attitude was needed? In China, this kind of attitude was used for several months already. but there it's mandatory. And like I think was mentioned before my speech, is that in our countries, doing this stuff mandatory is very, very difficult. So we wanted a voluntary kind of thing. So it's not mandatory for you to take a rapid test and have like a report card whether you are red or green. But if you want to enter a university, a park, or a stadium or a train station, in the entrance, you need to show your phone and see if it's green or red, and you get a green app for 72 hours after a rapid test in various locations around the safe zone. So this is how it's being managed, and it's being reported to local government. So the local government gets the test and the reporting and through that, it can define safe zone within the city through gates. The municipal control center receives all those data from the cloud in order to be able to have some overall statistics on movements of infected people around the city and devise the right policies around that. And again, there are issues of privacy, but most of it's voluntary and very little harm to privacy is needed. So that's one example of a solution that we have defined in order to tackle through innovation. So I want to sum up briefly saying that we understood that resilience in cities go through social capital, and it starts in local government. It needs to be nuanced and it needs to be trusted. Part of our problem and part of our failure is the national political crisis that eroded a lot of the trust. And the second is that we don't have an effective regional government system, and it's pushing us to develop this kind of system. The second is around entrepreneurs and innovation, where there is an open thinking around innovation. And for example, I am now involved in a system to keep elderly people more engaged in communities. I'm dealing a lot with social capital. So now we develop new systems in order to keep elderly people more engaged within communities. We have a pilot discussed in Tel Aviv, in other places, through innovation, in order to reinvent policies. And we start by having this attitude in the local government to be open for innovation. And we do a lot of testing, a lot of tries. Some are successful, some are not. We have faced a lot of difficulty, like other countries, with the COVID and other crises. We had some very, I think, solid lessons, and like other countries in the world, it's now up to us to implement them to have a better future and facing crises. And my last sentence will be that I think in the 21st century, we should understand that crisis and fast changes will happen more and more. And we need to be agile and responsive and innovative in order to face it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Roy. That was very interesting. I particularly found the emphasis on local and voluntary very interesting, and the difference in results when you go local and voluntary as opposed to trying to administer something on a statewide or a countrywide level, and how people respond to it, which is, I think, something that we're very much seeing in just about every country in the world right now during the current pandemic. Roy, I have a question for you already that has come from Pekka Tiainen from the Ministry of the Interior in Finland. Would you be up for answering a question?
This is why I'm here.
Super, thank you. So essentially, this is Pekka's, he is a special, I believe he's a senior specialist in security issues. The scenario-based approach could serve as a point of reference for risk management planning of different events and more broadly. For example, man-made CBRNE incident scenarios can lead to an increased level of preparedness. Proper cross-sectoral risk assessment with scenarios planning and exercising is one way to improve preparedness. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, that's very specific. First of all, we have written a guideline for preparedness, meaning what kind of training needs to be done. With regards to security challenges, Israel is very, unfortunately, but it's very trained how to deal with security events, how to train, how to integrate CCTV cameras in a city when there is an event, an accident or a terror attack. How do you close circles between fast responders? How do you isolate areas within cities? You can learn about, for example, an Israeli technology that was used to locate the terrorist in the Boston bombing, when you have tens of thousands of people in streets and you need to locate anomalies in behaviors of people. These kind of things are great. But I think that the new challenge is how do you integrate new types of players? It's not the fast responders, the city. It's normal day lives. It's stores. It's business owners. When you have a crisis that it's not fast and quick, I was a medic for a few years, and when you have someone wounded, you know that the point is how fast can you bring it to the hospital? So you scoop and run. That's the model. But when you have a pandemic or you have a crisis that is long-term, you need to develop different kind of attitudes for resilience. It's not only fast response of key trained people, is how to train huge kind of populational behavior kind of changes. And that is, I think, a little bit different.
Very good answer. Thank you very much. Before we move on to our next speaker, and I believe Roy is going to stay on the line for some question and answer in our debate that's coming up soon. I'm just going to remind everyone, we're getting a lot of feedback, but the hashtag #SureTampere you can access via Twitter, or there's a message wall where we'd love to hear from you and your comments and feedback on the event, and any remarks you might have or questions that you'd like to raise. Our next speaker, Maria Logothetti, is an economist and minister counselor for the municipality of Athens in Greece. And her keynote speech is called Athens, a Resilient City, How to Turn a Crisis into an Opportunity. And before we welcome Maria, I was just going to comment on the weather, because everybody always comments on the weather. And I understand in Athens, just like in Jerusalem, it's about 16 degrees Celsius, which sounds very warm for those of us who are in Tampere, where the mercury is hovering just above 0. So now we're going to hand over the floor to Maria. Thank you, Maria.
Hello from Athens.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine. Nice to be with you today. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be with you, even at a long distance. I'm a great believer that we should stay connected during these dystopic times. Let me upload my presentation so we start. Okay, give me a second. So the new era the world has entered in is undoubtedly a big challenge of resilience, as well as the vitality of the cities. I would say that at the first glance, one might think that this is a lost case. COVID-19 has totally changed our everyday lives and our modus vivendi. You will allow me to, I don't know what's happening, it does not. Can you see anything?
Yes.
I can't hear you. Can you see the presentation?
No, we're not able to see the presentation yet.
I'm very sorry. I guess it's coming up now. Okay.
Did you want to talk us through your presentation?
Sorry?
Did you want to talk us through your presentation? Without
yes.
Yes.
Here we are. Okay. Okay. So here we are. So I was talking about resilience. I will present a different approach of resilience from what we have heard up until now. I'm here to share with you a story, the story of a city that, and of its citizens, of course, that only some years back have felt that nothing of the above was possible. It was not possible to have a resilient city and a vital city. The city found itself in a dark, insecure present and managed to weave together bonds of trust by relying on the power of networks, of devoted citizens and inspired individuals. The city at that time bravely took up the responsibility to keep its fragmented and hurt society together on its feet and fill the void of a faltering state. You remember what was happening in Athens back in 2013-15, a city that managed to reclaim her place in the world against all odds, facing the perfect storm of depleted public funds and dysfunctional administration and the culmination of crisis that shook our city to the core. But this is not a story only of Athens. The obstacles we overcame, and especially the way we chose to address them, could offer valuable lessons, we believe, as we struggle to come to terms with this new globally threat that would eventually be only the beginning of globally spread viruses. So according to me, at least, an ever-changing world and its challenges should be reflected in our way of thinking and doing. Back in 2011, when the city administration of Athens has changed hands, everything was going wrong. The city was unable to face its needs. We knew that it was not only a financial crisis, but a social and political and moral crisis too. Poverty, unemployment, numerous homeless people in the center of Athens, urban collapse with closed shops, abandoned buildings, neglected public space, extreme social tension, and a widespread feeling of insecurity. Together with huge municipal debt, literally a municipality deprived of anything that could be considered as normality. So Athens had become an unattractive city. The public space was conquered and destroyed, a perfect storm that became a big opportunity for change. The system has lost its usual resistance to change, so everything suddenly became possible. The choice was made without realizing it because our driving force was the need to respond to the urgent needs of the city. So we had to find and act differently. We looked for new actors. We could feel the society was yearning to help and was looking for ways to channel this frustration in a creative way. So one invaluable resource is what people do when they want to make life better around them. From individual citizens, grassroots groups, to large businesses and philanthropic foundations. So make the best out of what you have. But there was no clear way for the city government to engage with these activities, often overlapping and complementing our social services. So we developed the Synathina platform, which won the Bloomberg Philanthropist Mayor Challenge Prize back in 2013. The basic idea was to document, strengthen, and support the vibrant civil society that was emerging as a response to the social crisis. At the heart of Synathina is a platform that allows members of the community to engage in problem solving and reform. Individual citizens and groups submit activities as well as ideas on how to improve their city. They can connect with each other, but also with potential partners from non-profit, academic, and private sector in order to maximize the impact of their actions. And through Synathina, they can easily connect with the municipality services as well. But Synathina's most important contribution was how it completely revamped our way of thinking and doing, for problem solving. So in Athens, we quickly realized that our potential as a city was larger than what conventional wisdom allowed at that time. Our only way was to become extrovert, to become ambitious, to get out of our comfort zone and do things differently. We reached out for help. We partnered with European cities. We participated in the making of the urban agenda, which was a big political, if I may say, success of the cities. The Eurocities was the next step in order to share best practices. And Europe being our home country, we realized that the world was also very much focused on cities policies and had recognized that something interesting was happening in Athens against all odds. So we made the connection with international networks and tried to deal with the overarching challenges such as climate change and resilience. The 100 Resilient Cities Network offered the tools to develop a long-term strategy for Athens by cooperating with all relevant stakeholders, universities, NGOs, think tanks, civil society groups, individual personalities in its drafting. But also it offered Athens the tools to develop the Lykabetos project, envisaging the revitalization of a landmark hill of Athens by inviting residents in the city center together with internationally renowned experts to participate in a wide consultation. The C40 network offered its expertise in providing solutions with a view of energy saving and developing a network that would allow Athens to set targets, to share and be informed about how cities better deal with climate change. Nevertheless, our civil society in its broader sense remained our main partner in the effort to act quickly and efficiently. Thus, Athens adopted inclusive methods by allowing citizens and stakeholders to participate in various ways, ranging from just sharing ideas to co-designing solutions and even owning results. So what we did on the ground? We created the Athens Partnership, a philanthropic incubator for innovative public-private partnerships, which became our way to leverage the goodwill of private companies, foundations, also private citizens to benefit our city. Through the Athens Partnership, we activated a number of projects that we can follow hereafter on tourism. We created, again, an open collaborative private-public partnership initially formed by the City of Athens, the Aegean Airlines, International Airport, and joined afterwards by the Greek Tourism Confederation and stakeholders of the sector. But the idea was not to compete, but to collaborate. So the initial mission was to create a unified Athens brand that captures the city through identity and authenticity. The impact was very important, as you can see. 3 World Travel Awards, increase of city break arrivals, foreign arrivals, and Athens climbed 21 places in the ICCA World Ranking. On the refugee issue, which was one of the big challenges of Athens that we faced at that time and Athens is still facing, we had to regain the city center public space, which was captured by refugees, and invite them to leave the parks that they were staying and come to live in apartments and camps created in Athens. But in order to control what was happening in the city, we created and hosted the Athens Coordination Center for Migrants and Refugees, an umbrella network that provides physical and virtual space for 92 different organizations working on refugees in Athens. We tried to turn fear and rejection into an agent of development. So our UIA project, Curing the Limbo, ensured that refugees are connected on active community groups in order to regain their self-belief and sense of purpose by offering services to the city. In this way, of course, their integration is accelerated, and they also address issues like lack of housing and job skills. On the revitalization of public space, which mainly stemmed from our decision to offer public space back to its citizens through participatory practices, we chose to go for the reuse of existing infrastructures. So, for example, here we see what happened in a neglected neighborhood of Kypseli that was engaged in an extensive public consultation to decide the best use of an old market building, which is turned now into a model social entrepreneurship center. 24 of our public schools became lively community hubs in the afternoon through the Open Schools project, injecting social life in whole neighborhoods. The Athens Polis project is a project that provides, on one hand, that small financial grants and development support are offered to residents, formal and informal civil society groups, to implement their proposals for small-scale interventions in parks, streets of their neighborhood, generally in public space. And on the other, on the Shop in the Center program, they provided for making use of abandoned shops in the center of Athens. So the municipality, for the first time, supported citizens to reopen abandoned shops and thus help to revitalize rundown areas of Athens center. And of course, in these areas now, within the context of the program, events of the neighborhood take place. The Athens Trigono project, the project for the revitalization of a small central commercial neighborhood of Athens of 110 acres, is the last but not least project, because it was a pivotal project of the Kaminis administration at that time, which turned this commercial neighborhood into a pedestrian street. You can see the difference from what it was back in 2017 and how it looks now. The goal of the municipality was for this commercial triangle to find its right place as a destination for visitors and tourists, but above all, the Trigono was its people, the merchants, inhabitants, and visitors. They participated in an everyday dialogue with the Trigono office people that was created on the spot. So the city administration worked hand in hand with people on the ground. Everybody learned how to co-create Trigono, and we think that Trigono is indeed a glimpse of Athens in the future. So what does Athens experience tell us? I think the main element is trust. Everyone should have a stake and a personal involvement on what happens in his or her city. This is how you leave no one behind. This was our very own social innovation that won in 2018 the European Capital of Innovation Award. To legitimize our policies, citizens need to be consulted. They need to feel part of what is happening in the city. And ultimately, they need to be empowered not only to design solutions to their problems, but also to implement them in their neighborhoods and in their city as a whole. In order to achieve this, they need an administration that trusts them and hence provides them with the necessary framework and tools. This line of thinking is exactly what we have managed to do in Athens during the 8 years in office. Engage everyone, believe that solutions can be found, trust your citizens, and give them the framework to work together in problem solving. What makes cities unique as opposed to central government, it's our capacity to deliver and our capacity to connect. We have reached this conclusion from our experience in Athens, and I firmly believe that this type of systemic change, would only but happen in a city. This laboratory of pluralism, creativity, solidarity, and innovation. And it's therefore incredibly valuable to be able to share with you this experience here today, offer a different approach of security. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. That was very inspiring, and I think that very topical message for today about collaborating, not competing, and the importance of trust, among other things, which applies to a great many projects today. And we're going to see you in our debate shortly, Maria, so don't go away. And now we have time for a short break, which is not really a break. It's just before we move into our debate with our on-site experts and keynote speakers about keeping cities vital. We're going to stop our program for 2 minutes, or a little bit more than that. But it's actually not a gap in the program because there's still going to be ongoing video. And as so many of us have been working remotely from home for many months now, it's good to remember to take a little break to stretch or grab a coffee while you watch our partner videos. And we'll resume our program in a few more minutes with a lively debate. Thank you.
At Securitas, we have a deep-rooted vision of safety for everyone. Together, we create a strong team. Our focus is clear: to deter risk, foresee potential threats, and bring peace of mind. We live the technology of tomorrow, today, and seeing what others cannot. Wherever we are and whatever we're doing, safety is what keeps us moving forward. Securitas, the new face of security.
InstaBlue Aware. Better decisions, faster. InstaBlue Aware enhances your cooperation and decision-making abilities by providing a versatile platform for forming a rich and visual situational picture from your operations. From mobile units to control rooms. By combining information from various sources, you are able to share, prioritize, and utilize critical information where it matters the most, in real time, while maintaining the crucial security standards of encrypted communication and system-level authorization. enabling modern, AI-enhanced safety solutions also in security-sensitive operations. Improved and reliable situational awareness enables you to improve your operational capability with all the relevant data. InstaBlue Aware. Better decisions, faster.
The COVID-19 pandemic has shone a light on the importance of flattening the curve of viral disease without bringing life to a standstill. The Nokia Automated Analytics Solution for Access Control monitors and triages individuals and groups entering sites. The solution is accurate, fast, and safe to use. The thermal camera is connected wirelessly to the network and instantly identifies those with elevated temperature, a key indicator of infection, while Nokia Spacetime Scene Analytics simultaneously determine whether individuals are wearing masks. Each camera is capable of scanning up to 6 people per second, with an accuracy rate of up to 95%. It can also scan 2 screening lines simultaneously to reduce queuing time. The Nokia solution can be integrated into any facility with minimal fuss. It can be scaled up during peak hours when necessary, support hundreds of cameras and locations, and its workflows are fully customizable. Automated control and flexible analytics keep people away from risk, while reductions in screening staff mean that payback is achieved within 6 to 10 months for typical medium to large-scale deployments. The solution suits access points with a constant and variable footfall and a requirement for non-intrusive triaging. Airports, railway stations, ports, and industrial sites all stand to improve screening efficiency while minimizing the risk of mass infection. Fortunately for us all, pandemics do not last forever. The solution's open architecture and rich analytics capabilities mean it can address enduring operational challenges related to security and headcount. Nokia is using connectivity and automation to make life easier in the most challenging of times. Nokia's automated analytics solution for access control provides a kind of effective and unobtrusive precautions that ensure safety while enabling us to move freely about our daily business.
And welcome back. Now we're going to have a lively debate on our theme for the day, which of course is keeping cities vital, public space and resilience, with a series of international experts. We're going to start with Konstantina Karoudi, who is an urban innovation actions expert from Athens, Greece. Welcome, Konstantina. Please introduce yourself.
Who will bring me chicken soup when I'm sick.
Hello.
It's not someone that I'm friend with in Facebook. And
Hi,
he was
we
number
can hear
1
you.
in Facebook.
We're live now.
Sorry.
That's okay. Although I was interested to hear the tip about chicken soup. So
I had a mentor in Harvard. He was the expert on social capital. Robert Putnam, his name. He was number 4th in Facebook, and he said that a friend is someone that will bring you chicken soup when you're sick, and not someone that you befriend in Facebook. So that's.
I think that's actually words to live by. Very wise. Yes, I agree. So let's start with Konstantina. Could you introduce yourself to our audience today?
Yes, hi everyone. I am delighted to be here. I'm on my capacity as a UIA expert. I'm the Urban Innovative Actions expert collaborating with the city of Tampere for the SURE project, and I'm a member of the UIA community. And I've been working on the issues of urban affairs since 2013, when I was advisor to the mayor of Athens and worked together with Ms. Logothetti. And I have been working on community issues from the beginning of my career, focusing on Southeast Europe for issues of civil society relations with the state to a very large extent. And resilience has been the talk of the day for many years now, but I focused on it as member of Mayor's Communist Cabinet and later as Associate Director for Europe and Middle East for the Global Initiative of 100 Resilient Cities, which was powered by the Rockefeller Foundation. And actually I had the opportunity to work with Tel Aviv as well during that period, as well as with Amy Chester. So I'm very glad to be here with you, and I was delighted to hear both Mr. Falkman and Mrs. Logothetti. I thought there were two different points of views presented here when it comes to events management, public space, and resilience.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome. We're very happy to have you here. And joining me in the studio here today is Ilari Karppi, a professor at the University of Tampere, Finland. Welcome, Ilari.
Thank you.
Please tell our audience about your connection to this event today.
Okay, but first I want to thank the organizers of this event for an opportunity to be actually part of this very important task of caring for the cities and communities, both the existing ones and those that are only yet to come. So my name is Ilari Karppi. I come from the University of Tampere. I'm an adjunct professor of regional studies and local and regional governance there. And academically, I work very keenly on the ideas and issues of sustainable communities and how to make cities really work sustainably. And I regard safety and security issues as the core aspects actually of social sustainability, for which actually I'm very glad of being a part of the SURE team as well in the very same time. And in the SURE team, I work mainly with security scenarios, or urban security scenarios more correctly, and also working with the planning guidelines for safe urbanity. And what I think about today's seminar is that we have heard very inspiring ideas. Really, and I'm really glad to be here. I regard this as some kind of transformation towards Smart City 3.0, the more human and more livability kind of version of the traditional, more technically oriented one. And the task of keeping cities vital actually, well, it comes in many forms. It's a very complex issue, and in very complex issues like this, it's elementary to keep the citizens involved if you want to do it in a socially sustainable way. And it's all, as we heard in the keynote speeches. So it's not only about like making a lip service to making people participate, but making ordinary citizens love something like a meaningful partners in these vitality projects, noting the hopes and fears of individuals when it comes to develop a more technologically sophisticated, safe urban environments. And this is what I think that was where Annina referred while talking about the socio-technological aspect to safety and safety planning in urban environments, and in also the urban event environments. So thanks for having me here.
Thank you and welcome. And from Helsinki, we have a virtual connection to Minna Leno and Maria Falken, who are business and customer experience designers at Kaleidoscope. Welcome, Minna and Maria. Please introduce yourselves.
Yeah, and greetings from 160 kilometers south from Tampere. So this is the capital of Finland. I would like to say that it's kind of a sister city. And we're happy working with SURE project as well. And myself, I've been working for and with organizations and institutions for almost 30 years now. And I especially love mixing and matching different cultures and practices across industries. Foresight and being a few steps ahead from the competition driving especially. And at the moment, I work here in this consultancy company, Kaleidoscope Helsinki, as a business designer.
And my name is Maria, very happy to be here as well. I have a long background in service and business design and customer experience development. And together with Minna, we founded Kaleidoscope about 8 years ago. So we are no spring chickens anymore, and happy to have a company that seems to be doing well, even though we are in the middle of this pandemic. The angle we take when looking at city security and resilience is a very human-centered one. We focus on figuring out the value and impact of city security on residents, authorities, enterprises, and visitors. And by enterprises, we mean enterprises in the immediate catchment area of these urban events that we are looking at. The idea is to make city security and resilience more visible and tangible through making credible promises about it. So this is where we come in, and we've been working with this, combining the sort of ambience of an event with feeling secure and having a sense of security when attending the event.
Thank you and welcome. And from Brooklyn in New York City, we're joined by Amy Chester, who is the Managing Director of Rebuild by Design in NYC. Previously, Chester worked for New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg as Chief of Staff to the Deputy Mayor for Legislative Affairs and as a Senior Policy Advisor. Welcome, Amy, and please tell us more.
Thank you, and thank you for hosting me here today. It's very exciting to be here. I'm in New York City, as you mentioned. It's actually morning, and I'm watching the sun come up. And I run an organization called Rebuild by Design, which came about after Hurricane Sandy destroyed the Northeast United States. And we've been working now for 7 years, helping communities build back or plan for different types of disasters. My background actually is in community organizing and government. I started out as a community organizer, and I worked on many issue-based and electoral campaigns, and then I went into government for 12 years. And I worked on the legislative side, and I worked for Mayor Michael Bloomberg, and I worked on housing issues. And in all of my positions, I was always working to figure out how government can understand communities better and how communities can understand government better, kind of on the cusp of where they all meet. And this really culmination is Rebuild by Design, where we really work with experts all around the world, communities and local governments to build infrastructure. It could be social infrastructure, it could be hard infrastructure to make communities a better place. So thank you for having me here.
And thank you for being part of our panel and our debate. And we also have in the studio Anina. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And we're going to also be joined by Roy is on the line, as is Maria. And I have some questions that I'm going to direct to our panelists. And we're going to start with Ilari and the topic of security as a subjective and intimate experience. The first question that I have for you is, how do you feel? Can security really be planned or designed?
That's a really important question. It's a hugely large question in the very same time. So whenever we talk about and think about urban design, we also have to ask ourselves that, okay, what issues can we reduce back to design? Of course, I mean, design has its role, its important aspect here, but what design can do is that it can provide affordances to different uses of, for instance, urban space, but it can't guarantee the feeling of security or the sense of security. Well, maybe we should say that it can't guarantee that anyone can feel secure in any kind of situations. So it can only provide the basics. So, and this is one of the main reasons why listening to citizens is so important. Well, the great urbanist Jane Jacobs once said that long ago that only after citizens can help themselves, they can start helping the city as well. And it's also a vital aspect here while we think about the interplay between the citizens and then the urban environment. That is the goal of and the subject of design.
Yeah, and a very important point, I think. You know, if the individual is not well or well-being and hasn't been helped, they're going to have much less interest in the city and the infrastructure.
Exactly.
And I think that's really, really important. The second question that I have for you. Oh, you want to keep discussing this, shall we?
No.
We could have a long conversation about, yes, because just before we started, we had a conversation about resilience and whether it's from the personal level or the systemic level. And I replied that I think both are very important. So my second question for you, the SURE project proclaims that a secure city is created together. Isn't this self-evident given the complexities of urban development?
Well, I hope that it would be self-evident, but other way around, I'm as a governance researcher, so I would be out of business if it would be self-evident, but it works like that. So we all are well aware of the phenomenon of the different silos. They are in administration, they are in private sector organizations, they are everywhere, and they are effectively blocking one's abilities to see beyond the limits or the walls of the silo. It blocks the view of the people who sit from their own silos and how they see the world. And the world is, after all, it's shared by all those actors. And this is why different kind of platforms for doing things together are needed. And a lot of talking is needed as well. I mean, convincing people to come together and break the walls of the silos. And I think that it's one of the merits of SURE project in the same time of providing one of those platforms and one of the very good reasons to come together for a common cause, like security is and safety is in the urban context. So yes, I mean, in a way it's self-evident, and other way around it really isn't. So we have to work on it.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And now I'm going to turn to Minna and Maria on the topic of a safe and smooth event experience. I have a question. From a safety perspective, how important are visitors' feelings at events?
Yes, really interesting point, and a point that we've been working a lot with. And I would like to say that safety is not only a technology, but also a feeling. As Maya Angelou once said, at the end of the day, people won't remember what you said or did. They will remember how you made them feel. And I totally agree. This same applies to an event. As a visitor, you might be really excited about going to see, for example, your favorite band. Then you end up waiting in a queue, feeling a bit anxious and restless. And then again, listening to the band makes you feel really happy and content. The behavior of adults affects you. It's easy to just enjoy. Or if somebody starts a fight, it might be a little bit frightening. And also the way the authorities act to a strange situation, that also matters. And that creates also feelings. Also, overcrowded and packed environment might set you to escape as soon as possible. So the importance of visitors' feelings or feeling of safety is obvious when we look at the success of an event, the commercial services, customer satisfaction, and willingness to come again. And keeping in mind the fact that we want to support the vitality of cities. The more people enjoy, the more they also usually buy.
Good answer. I like I love the quote by Maya Angelou. And I have, yes?
It's a classic one.
Yeah, it's a classic one, but I think it's so true.
Yeah.
And the next question that I have for both of you is, how can we measure visitors' sense of security?
Also a very good question. And before we set out designing any measurement instruments, we need to understand what the visitors' sort of elements of sense of security are. And we work quite a lot around this. And when an event visitor feels safe and secure, he or she can relax and have a good time and doesn't have to worry about being pickpocketed or suddenly drawn into a fight or something like that. Also, moving around should be free, smooth, and with minimal congestions. Surveillance and monitoring should feel non-invasive. So, of course, we need that, but it shouldn't be in your face, and you shouldn't have the feeling that Big Brother is watching you. Also, interference in case of disturbances should be swift and also unobtrusive. And if something really life-threatening happens, of course, it should be, the feeling should be that the people in charge have the thing under control. And calm and relaxed people tend to behave sensibly and predictably. And this is, of course, what we want to achieve with all of this. So how to measure this sense of security? We need to look at these elements that I just mentioned. And we have two ways of doing that. Firstly, a short or very immediate, we call it pulse after events, where we have the visitors answer questions around encountered problems, smooth transitions, also the authorities' actions, if they saw anything, was it okay, did it feel okay, did it improve their feeling of safety, and their general sense of relaxation and security at the event. But then we also need to look at the other side, what the authorities report that happened during the event. So how many security alerts did we have, and what were the response times to these alerts? And the third sort of lens we need to look at this through is the enterprise's point of view. So did the sales during and after the event meet expectations, and did they encounter some kind of disturbances in their daily life during the event? So that's the short-term thing. And then there's more a long-term sort of measuring of this, and that Annina already mentioned a little bit earlier on. We're talking about measuring the social ROI of these security investments. And here we are looking at describing the change and evaluating the results. So first we need to identify and involve the stakeholders, and then we need to map the impact of these investments, and then evaluate the results together with the stakeholders. Focusing on the psychosocial effects and the sense of security, once again, for the event visitors and maybe the residents of the city as well. And by doing this, we can sort of quantify the change and the results and have a better evaluation of how good these investments have been, and also have a good solid base for future investment decisions.
That's an excellent answer. I was left thinking about that one sentence that you said, calm people tend to be sensible. I think that's a wonderful takeaway. Thank you to both of you. And now we're going to move to New York, to Amy Chester. And my question for you is as follows. How is the magic done? How do you rebuild a city after crisis?
Yeah, I mean, wow, it depends what type of crisis. Cities go through crises every day, right? It's a crisis if our subway breaks down and there's, too many people that are trying to get home from work. There are crises when you can't figure out how to put, food on your table and take care of your kids and work 3 jobs, and it's still not coming together. So I think cities are elastic in the way that we take care of crises in the same way that people are. In terms of a big disaster, whether it's COVID or Hurricane Sandy, an earthquake, whatever it might be, when there is physical crisis and when you can see it, and I also think that the COVID crisis is very physical because you can see it on our streets. You can see that people aren't there. You can hear the sirens of the emergency service bringing people to the hospital. When you have those moments, they actually bring opportunities. And it's always hard to say that because you don't want to ever think that something good came out of a crisis. However, they bring these moments where people and especially elected officials are willing to think a little different. And you really need to think about how you use that moment. How are you able to say, okay, in that moment, here are the things that aren't working, let's say in terms of the health crisis, in our public health. But you have to also take that moment and think about what are all the other things that haven't been working, and how could we use this moment to set forward a new way of thinking. And I think personally, the most important way to do that, and the only way that you can do that really effectively, is with the communities who are most effective at the table. If they're talking about their experiences and you're understanding from them what it's like to be in their communities who are the most effective, and also what are all the other issues that are compounding the health issue, for instance, if it's COVID. We've seen all around the world that the communities that are most vulnerable are also the ones that are unfortunately dying because of COVID. So what you need to do is figure out, why are they vulnerable in the first place? It's not just about this moment. It's about all these other moments that have led to this vulnerability, and come up with shared solutions and actually use this moment to implement those shared solutions when politicians and government and business is willing to kind of change what they do a little bit and try something new.
That's very good. That's very, I think, important to the importance of the personal over group, society, state, etc. Because at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We're all individuals with our own challenges, whatever they may be. Yeah, thank you for that. And now we're going to ask Konstantina in Athens to comment on the topic of public space and agoras as event platforms. My question for you today is, what are the broader considerations and approaches about public space management and city vitality?
So I'm going to answer the question with a couple of questions in a way, kind of building on what the other panelists have already said. So Mixed started by asking whether city vitality is a lost case under COVID-19. And I thought that was a really interesting question to kind of ponder upon, especially when I combine it with what Mr. Folkman said on the question of managing large population behavioral changes, which is what COVID has also brought upon us. And in a way, it's what resilience is about, as Amy Chester just mentioned, and as well as the various elements that we have to take into consideration when we're talking about event security. So if you put all these together, then you have a picture where, first of all, we realize the obvious, but it has to be mentioned that events are part of a everyday city reality, that we were used to it and now has been disrupted, but it's also changing. So events as our own, they're not taking part anymore just on the public domain, but they're also online, offline. And often with the city of Tampere, we actually have discussed within the context of SURE whether we should consider event management as I'm hearing my voice. So whether we should consider event management as a new phenomenon where public crowds, for example, will not necessarily be controlled, but they will be dispersed in different ways within the city because they will be following, to give you an example, an online event. So that's a question kind of to put on the table when we're thinking about urban management, which is something that we heard from Anina, but as well from Mr. Ilari, that actually we're talking about bringing together different actors and trying to break silos, right? And then within this picture, the third element is public space consideration. So public space has emerged as a commodity, as a really important commodity during COVID-19 overall, because this is where people actually went freely. That's the only place where people can actually go under quarantine. But imagine a situation where under conditions of climate change, let's say in Israel, you are expecting to have 10 more days of heat waves than before. So imagine if you have a heat wave in Jerusalem, or let's say in Sevilla, but you're quarantined under COVID-19, under a health emergency. What would happen then? And that question is a broader public space consideration, but it's directly also related to our behavior, even to event management. There are often bigger questions that we basically don't think about. I guess this is where I want to finish this quick response, that have to be taken into consideration and are taken into consideration when you're thinking about event management, public administration, and kind of public space. And then there are also other additional, let's say, public space potential risks. So one thing to say is that public space is much more at risk than we think. Public life is much more at risk than we think. We really realized that during COVID-19, city vitality definitely is not a lost case. I think we all know that. We've talked about it, but if we really want to maintain public life, we should be prepared to think about these broader, basically, issues like climate change and how are these related to our everyday management and behavior in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a very thorough answer. I have two more questions for you. The next question is, why is the EU investing in cities like Tampere through the UIA program, and what are the expectations for SURE?
So we're also joined, I believe, in the conversation from a member of the UIA Secretariat from Lille. And thank you for being here. The UIA, to give you an example, is investing about 55 million euros at the moment in cities that have been selected for their willingness to explore issues, let's say, on public space, as I said. So it's a much bigger investment. It's about 350 million euros overall, but the 55 are about public space management considerations, including Tampere. And the reason the EU is doing this is because the UIA is a practical answer of the European Commission towards the cities that they were asking for more practical tools to innovate, to basically try to change the ways they operate within the context of the urban agenda. So that was a decision that was made a few years ago, that part of the budget would be dedicated to those cities that are willing to demonstrate that capacity of change. So what the expectation from the UIA program is to actually map those unseen changes that we kind of discussed about already during this debate. So we're trying to identify what is Tampere, for example, doing in order to break down the silos. So UIA is trying to map the changes that cities are trying to do by implementing their selected pilot projects like SURE, because 5 million euros or 4 million euros is not a big amount for a city. It's a good amount for a pilot project to be implemented. But what we're trying to do is to capture those moments of change, let's say in bureaucracy, in stakeholder management, in stakeholder engagement, in procurement. These are 4 examples. We're trying to see what are these unseen changes and then transfer this knowledge to other cities across the European Union and beyond, so that these pilots, this investment can scale up. And this is the expectation. The expectation is to collaborate closely with the cities in order to really help them find solutions and go beyond business as usual, which was the aspiration of the Urban Innovative Actions program.
Thank you for that excellent answer. I have one more question for you, and I think you've touched upon what I'm going to ask you, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How can we start building a community of practice on the issues of public space resilience and event security? What are some of the steps?
Well, I think I'm going to be very brief in order to allow for the other panelists to also comment on this. But I think a first step is, for example, this online international event where we're trying to capture the different dimensions of this issue. And then the second step would be to identify where each person could contribute in order to go beyond the exchange of best practices, which is always a good place to start. But when you're talking about the community of practice, is better, for, in my opinion, for it to be effective, to focus on problems. I will not call them challenges, I will say problems. And then what are their possible solutions, and working together towards those solutions. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
And I think Anina can also say a few things, basically, maybe from her experience from SURE, because I think part of the aspiration is also that, to use SURE in order to scale up in Finland and beyond.
Thank you. Would you like to comment?
Yeah, thank you.
Anina.
Thank you so much, everybody, and especially Konstantina for the question and the possibility to comment. I've been making a lot of notes because she's the boss, so I'm gonna have to keep. I have to follow the tracks, and yeah. Well, I really like the idea to capture the moment of change. So that's one of the focus areas that we're going to have to pay attention to when we measure the results with the ladies Minna, Lena, and Maria Falken. And Maria always makes me laugh because she's telling me that there's so many partners, so many work packages, and so many targets. You're going to have to put your ducks on the row. Because I'm like, whoa! I go from one place to another, and she's always like reminding me of the ducks. Keep the ducks in a row. So I'm trying to keep the ducks in a row and capture the moments of change. So it is a good message for us, and I really like your Konstantina's broad thinking on that we have this specific moment now. And this is what I've been trying to tell to our partners, that now we have this wonderful opportunity to use the 4 million euros that the European Union has provided to us to develop the urban city center in the city of Tampere. So we should really take it seriously. And we should really we should really commit to the targets. And it seems like today that we have such a huge group of top experts all around the world. So we should be good, I think.
I see that Ilari raised his, you would like to comment?
Yeah,
yes?
I'd like to think with very positive and optimistic way. I mean, finding good sides from the COVID situation, because we were forced to move a great deal of our workshop kind of work into a Teams format, which means that we have recordings of all those decisive moments where we had all the actors together, where we had discussions, where we started from the fuzzier vision of what we are doing with our scenario writing and that kind of things, and then we ended up into something which is much more structured in a way, so we can actually trace back those moments that you mentioned to some extent. So,
good, yeah.
So even if we are living in the middle of some sort of catastrophe, so there are all of the bright spots.
Yeah, and also I take the point about calling them problems and not challenges. I think that's very apt, but at the same time, new ways of doing things,
exactly.
new solutions, all kinds of new things arise. And not to downplay the gravity of the situation. We have two Marias today, so I'm going to ask Maria in Athens and Roy, who's not in Athens, but just to differentiate our Marias. Would you, either of you, like to comment on any of these issues that we've just raised?
Well, if I may speak first.
Yes, please do.
I would say that I agree with. There is. I understand there is a mutual agreement on the fact that we are here. We are confronting a new situation, and already we know that we have to create new tools, see things in a different way, and. If I see things in a positive way, which is if I see that what is being discussed in a positive way, I would say that we are all convinced that we will go back to normality. We will go back to what we used to know. But I'm not sure that this is exactly true, at least for the next 1 or 2 years. If I see things, if I read what has been said in a more constructive way, again positive, I would say that we all we strengthen the point that we should give a new place to people and to a human approach. For being connected with security, resilience, and safety. So my point is that we should be able to recreate new communities in cities, and the events that will take place should be thought and designed in a completely different way. I'm not an expert on explaining now how things can be done. I guess Roy could build on that and say more because he's more involved in security issues. But I would say that we should again invite people, citizens, to come up with some ideas and build and follow a bottom-up approach.
Thank you. Yes, and let's hear from Roy.
Yeah, I want to build on what Maria had said, and it's about normality. I hope you won't be angry when I'll say that the crisis personally improved my life on many aspects. And I want to recheck the question of normality because, during COVID, I eat better because we got better food, because now there is direct marketing to the city by growers of agriculture. And I want to keep that in the future after COVID. I do better health because I run more and I have more time. I spend 4 hours less a day not traveling by car, and I can do way more. So what I'm trying to say, and there were a lot of insightful things to the speakers before me, is that we don't need to think just how do we return to normality and then develop, systems that will support what we used to learn about normality. We need to reinvent our life, and I think it can improve. And I think this rebuild by design organization concept is brilliant, but I don't want to rebuild the same thing. And I think, for example, in Jerusalem, we spent time designing events for families, not how to make families feel safer in ordinary events, but we understood, for example, that we want small events. So we took a city that, like any city, thought about rock bands, large events. It's easier, it gets filmed better and everything. And we said, let's think how we make small, up to 500 people events, and how do we make them less commercialized? No, you cannot buy their things, because we want families with children come, and we don't want it to be all around shopping. And we designed a concept of family events in parks. For example, my wife is a theater teacher, and we took theater students and we told them go to this open schoolyards and do story hours for families twice a day during summer. So we reinvented events where families could meet outside. No, it doesn't cost anything. It's easy to produce. It costs the city very little. So what I'm saying is that we don't need to think about returning to normality and designing systems to return to normality. We need to redesign our life and make them better.
Very, very good
Can
point.
I jump in here?
Sorry, did somebody
I absolutely agree, Roy. And I think, our name came because we started after Hurricane Sandy, but we kept the name Rebuilding because cities are constantly rebuilding. We're rebuilding every single day. We're seeing that, the store on the corner is now a house, and, everything changes. I completely agree, Roy, and I think that we already have started rebuilding because we're online right now, and we probably would have all gotten on a plane to be at this event together. And I love the way that there's been so many interesting events that would have never happened. So I live about maybe a 10-minute walk from the biggest park in Brooklyn. It's called Prospect Park. It's an incredible place. And during COVID now, it's never before, if you bike around the loop, you hear all these different musicians that are playing all around the park, not for money, because they're going out and practicing with one another, and they're meeting up with one another. And you do see these story times in the park. And these are things that the communities themselves have put together. There's actually a musician that lives a couple of blocks away from me, and twice a week during the worst part of lockdown, him and his friends would go outside on the street and just start playing. And to be honest, it's not legal. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do it without an assembly permit and a noise permit and all those things, but it wasn't being enforced at the time. And a lot of things that weren't, were a little bit breaking the law, are now becoming, normal parts of our lives. For instance, eating outside on the sidewalk, something that, I love about Athens, I love about Tel Aviv. We didn't have it in New York in most places. Now, we only have 25% indoor dining, and there's sidewalk, there's outside of all these different restaurants, like sidewalk cafes, and it's lovely. And I hope it stays forever. So I think part of what we need to do is watch what the innovation is already happening and what communities are doing and what communities want to see, and then figure out how do we bring more resources to that and lift up these ideas and make them permanent.
An excellent answer, both Amy and Roy. I think this idea of moving towards the new normal rather than trying to recreate what was is really, really important. I have a question for our panelists that's come from the public or from our audience that I think I will just read out, and then if you can raise your hand if you would like to answer it. I already saw somebody who looked quite eager, even though they haven't heard the question yet, but that's good. So the question is, what's the optimal balance between control and trust in producing safety and security in events and public spaces? Who would like to tackle that one?
That's what we try to find out.
Yeah, exactly. That's like the key of the day. And I think part of this is this whole idea of the new normal. You know, as Amy pointed out, we're looking at certain things may previously not have been totally legal, but there's a new way of doing things. And for example, eating on the sidewalk or listening to music and moving towards the new normal, whatever that may be.
I mean, I think we'd have to define what control and trust mean. We trust that in an emergency situation, people will look to the fire exits and use the fire exits, right? It's because we have institutionalized that piece. And we need to figure out how do we institutionalize new pieces at bigger events, whether it's in case of a terrorist attack or in case of a pandemic. We need to figure out what are all the different possibilities, the different scenarios, and then how do we teach citizens in ways that are not threatening or scary, that if you're in a situation like this, this is what you do. And a lot of times we do it really with signage. And we do it with having, speakers that come on and tell you what to do, something that's very calm, because I actually trust that communities do the right thing and citizens do the right thing. And when they come to an event, if there is an issue, they're going to likely do the right thing. Of course, you don't see that everywhere. We see people who have COVID and are going out and infecting others, whether they know it or not. So it's not, I'm not, I know the realities of what happens, but I think that the masses amount of people try to do the right things when they're led in the right direction.
Thank you. We have time for, did somebody else, was that Roy? Yes?
Just one point.
Sure.
I think Anina described a system involving AI, and I want to say something about black boxes. I think the balance between control and trust goes through the people understanding the logic behind policies and how they operate. I think part of the problem is that we are starting to be controlled by these black boxes that we like to put the words AI above. That's the algorithm that designs it, and we don't know what it means. And then hopefully it will get stronger where people reject these kind of city policies and government policies that are controlled by these black boxes that say we have an algorithm. We can't really tell you how we analyze. We have done a huge experiment here that I'm very happy that failed miserably around the tracking app around COVID. And it was like this, amazing AI system designed by security agencies in Israel. And so people very fast were smarter and says, well, when I go run during lockdown, I leave the phone at home because I don't want no one to know where I go. So and we would do all sorts of hacking around. Well, I don't want someone knows that I went farther than my home that I'm allowed. So it's about being transparent, policy being clear, and make it accessible, and not saying, yes, the government has an amazing AI that will keep you safe.
Thank you. We're almost at the end. We have a few more minutes to go before we wrap up. Right here in the studio, I believe, Anina and Ilari would like to comment.
Yeah, were you first? Was I first?
I try to be very, very brief with my comment. Actually, this is Roy. In her very recent book, Shostan Zubov said that Big Brother was not so frightening as an entity that was controlling. Now we have the Big Other, and that's much more frightening. And that's AI that you mentioned. And now I give the word to Anina.
Yeah, the analogy I was saying yesterday, we had a discussion to Israel, and I was saying that I always feel that we're like the little brother towards them because they're always ahead of us and they know all the best possible solutions, and we try to learn. So it's a good anecdote. I was thinking about the comments that you made, and I know that there are some people in this room who actually know how it works in a case of emergency, and I had the honor to follow their work this summer in a pilot. And for the question of control and trust is that even if I'm the project leader, in a way it's an illusion. So
Yeah,
we have only best possible solutions. Like Roy mentioned that we have the AI box, and then we go to the question of humans and machines, and how well the machine is able to serve the human, and which way it goes, and what is the relationship there. But even if we're not necessarily able to control everything, we have to trust. And in a way, we have had this wonderful network of security and safety actors in the area of Tampere, and we also have our history and the path here. So I believe that we have the actors here.
Oh, yeah.
And if we are mature enough, we're able to put them in a row, like the ducks in a row.
The ducks in a row.
And ducks in a row. I like that. Yeah. And we're able to make the safety network that we need. And AI supports us.
And I think that's a very good spot, a very good note to end on, and possibly the topic for the next webcast, which could, yes, that could be very interesting. So I would just like to say that we've come to the end of our very successful session on keeping cities vital, public space and resilience, organized by Sure Tampere. And I hope that you enjoyed the event. Thank you for joining us, and stay safe. Bye-bye from Tampere.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.